when I was 18 years old, I'd grown up in a non-Christian home. And so both of my parents had grown up in church, but never gave their lives to the Lord. And so they just decided they weren't going to force religion on their offspring. And after they had one, they were like, we're done. Give us no more children. We've had enough. This one is plenty. Thank you. So I'm an only child, if you can't tell, right? Yeah, I'm bleeding only child right now. I know I am. So anyway, so I grew up in this non-Christian home, and by the end of my senior year in high school, I was very full of myself and was very lost. I was an atheist, and I went to a really big high school over in the Louisville area, which is just, it's in the Metroplex, but maybe 45 minutes north of here. And everything always went my way. You ever know that kid? Just that kid's the one you really want to pummel. The one that they do the dumbest stuff and it always just works out for them. They always get by with everything and somebody else always has to take the blame. That was me, man. I'm the guy to hate. It was me. Everything always worked out. Until the end of my senior year, when the girl that I'd been dating for a couple of years suddenly broke up with me and I was completely powerless. And at least in my adolescent life, that was the first time I'd ever been in a situation where I felt like I'm not in control. I'm not in charge. I don't know what to do. I probably had a little bit of a God complex. I didn't believe in God, but I thought if there was one, it was probably me. And that's how all the atheists really are. And I was in this situation where I was just stuck. And my best friend had just started walking with Jesus. And I'd known this guy since kindergarten. Here we are in our senior year of high school. This guy's been my best friend since we were 5, okay? And now he's given his life to the Lord, and I'm ticked. Because I'm like, oh no, now he's gonna be all preachy and I'm gonna have to hear about it. And I was right too. He got all preachy and I had to hear about it. So he comes up to me, and this is maybe 2 weeks after the breakup. And for the past 2 weeks, I'd been really depressed. Because I'm sad, I'm not in control. It was all the divine setup. We are just so thankful that the Lord works and plays 10-dimensional chess, right? He's always at 10 levels. He's moving pieces around on us. And so he comes up to me and he says, the perfect thing. Just the perfect statement. He said, Brad, I know you won't do this because you're so arrogant. Who do you think you are? Which, of course, is exactly what an arrogant person would say, right? He said, but if you'd ask Jesus for help, he'd help you. I was like, whatever, you're an idiot. God's not real. You don't know what you're talking about. I leave that conversation, and I'm stuck. I don't want Jesus. I want my best friend to leave me alone. That's the agenda. That's the objective. But here's the problem. This dude's known me since kindergarten, and I just know he is not gonna lay up. He is gonna be on my case about this forever until I try his God thing, okay? So I go home that night with zero intention of encountering God that doesn't exist. My objective is prove my best friend wrong so I can tell him he's an idiot and he'll leave me alone. That's the goal, okay? Sounds a little bit like an arrogant person, right? Yeah. So I go home that night, and I pray for the first time, and it was probably the most ghetto prayer heaven has ever heard, okay? Because let me tell you how the prayer went, all right? I go, God, if you're real, what am I even doing? I'm talking to the air. Okay, whatever. My friend says you can help. You can't help, you're not even there. Whatever, he says you can help, so if you can help, bye. Now, y'all are laughing, but you learned amen in Sunday school, and I didn't go to Sunday school. Okay, this was an honest prayer. I said bye. When you're done talking to your friend on the phone, you don't go amen and hang up. You say bye. So I was trying to give God a real shake here. If he was real, I was going to say goodbye. Okay. I say bye, and the presence of the Holy Spirit falls in my room, and I feel it as an atheist that doesn't believe there's a God. I feel God all over my body, and I start laughing out loud uncontrollably, with the joy of the Lord as an overflow. I'm like, I'm an idiot. It's me. He is real. Who knew? And so I'm no longer an atheist. In one moment, I became the worst atheist ever because I'm like, God is real. He shows up. And I just want to tell you, for those of you that find yourself in desperate moments, cry out to the real Jesus. Cry out to him. He is real and he meets us. He is powerful. He can show up. He can blow your minds. I just want to say this. For those of you who are like, I've never had an encounter with God that felt like a powerful encounter. I've never had something like that. Don't you let up until you get one. You pray every single day until you have a power encounter with God, because those things are real. I didn't have anything going for me. There was no reason God should have answered my bye prayer. right? And yet he did. I wasn't even believing. If he'll do that for a lost atheist that's trying to prove a friend wrong, then why not for you? All right. Well, it wasn't long after that I show up at, I guess it was more like a year, really. A year after that, we're not going to go back. Man, you guys got me all off track. You're laughing and giving me feedback. And I like it so much, you made me lose my place in my own story. Okay, so so that night I have this power encounter, but I don't know Jesus yet, right? You don't know the gospel. It's not enough that you believe that God is real. You must believe that he is Lord and give yourself to him. Okay, so I show up at school the next day, and all my friends go to churches that don't have this sort of theology in their playbook, okay? Let's say it that way. And so I show up and I go, God's real. I prayed and he showed up in my room and I guess I'm a Christian or something now. And they're looking at me like, what are you talking about? Where are you coming from? And they go, God doesn't do that. I go, maybe your God doesn't do that, but mine showed up in my bedroom last night. And now I'm the theologian, and poor them, they don't have a practical theology, right? And so they just do not know what to do with this, because faking it would have been the kind of thing I would have done, actually, right? So it's just a few weeks later in the youth group that I was connecting to now, that my best friend was a part of, I was going on a ski trip. And I'll just say the best place to get saved, because I did it, is on the slopes of Telluride. So if you got saved someplace else, undo that, go back and get saved at Telluride, because it's the best thing ever. That doesn't work, by the way. So I got saved on the slopes of Telluride. I remember they were singing a song the first night. The ski trip was all a ruse to get the crazy kids at the high school that didn't know the Lord to go skiing and then give them Jesus, okay? I'm really grateful for that trip, by the way. It's my favorite. And so the first night of the ski trip, we were in this little lodge, and they were giving a message, and they were doing worship songs, and they were singing that song, Everything That Has Breath, Praise the Lord. And I just remember in the middle of the song, it's the first time I'd ever been in a Christian environment where I wasn't ticked, where I wasn't like trying to get out of there, or trying to cause a scene. It was the first time I was actually open and receptive. And I just had the weirdest revelation. I know it's gonna sound so goofy. They're singing Everything That Has Breath, Praise the Lord, and I go, I'm an everything. I'm gonna praise the Lord. And then I actually then started to have real worship come out of my heart in the middle of that worship song. And honestly, I think I gave my life to the Lord in that moment. I didn't really need the message, but the message explained a few details. And at the end of the message, the guy said, is there anybody? And I didn't even wait for him. I'm standing up on the front row. I'm waving my hand. I'm like, I want it up, tears in my eyes. And people are like, is this for real? Because I'm the loudmouth at the high school. Like, everybody knows I've got a reputation. And I'm pulling pranks and all kinds of stuff. And they go, is this for real happening? And I am genuinely giving my life to the Lord. And that night, as we were heading back to the place where we were staying, we were meeting at some little like community center or whatever, and our lodging was maybe half a mile away. I asked if I could walk back, and I just remember looking up and seeing the moon, perfectly, cloudless sky. Moon was bright, and I just looked up, and the gift of God touched me, because no atheist that's been saved for 15 minutes is this smart. I prayed, God, with all the energy I use to serve myself, I'm gonna serve you the rest of the days of my life. And I fully gave myself over. And I just want to tell you, I want to give you a point of encouragement. I've lived that way since I was 18 years old. I'm 42 now. You can live that way. You can live fully for Jesus. Alive in your heart, filled with joy, making mistakes and repenting, but fully engaged in the Lord. You can live that way, and it's beautiful. It is so enriching. It's the way we were designed to live. So anyway, after that, it's about, a year later, and I'm at this gathering that I really don't exactly know how I got to, but it was a very charismatic gathering, which was not the crowd that I was running with at that point. And I accidentally got filled with the Holy Spirit that night. I don't even know what happened. But after I accidentally got filled with the Holy Spirit, I now started to hear the voice of the Lord in a fresh way that I had not known that first year in Christ. And I started to hear the Lord speak to me some pretty strange things. And so I'm gonna tell you a little bit of that journey here. So I'm now at this point, I'm 19 and a half, something like that. And I've got the Lord just starting to put on my heart that I was gonna be a missionary in Africa, and I was gonna minister to Muslims. Like, okay, well, that's pretty intense. So I then started to pray about it. And I said, well, Lord, what am I supposed to take with me? And I heard the Lord say, take nothing with you. I said, well, that's a really bad answer. maybe you're in a mood today. I'll try again tomorrow, and we'll ask the same question. We'll get a different answer, I'm sure, right? I said, okay, well, where am I going? I heard the Lord say, you're not going to know until you get there. Oh, no, Lord. You're in a bad mood, or I don't know. Maybe I ate a burrito that's not settling well, and I'm just hearing things today. I said, okay, well, what missions organization am I going to go with? You're going by yourself. You're not going with a missions organization. Lord, there's all these missions organizations that are over there that really know what they're doing already. There's no reason to have to do it this way. If we can put up that Mark 6:8 verse, I think we got that. Yeah. These were his instructions. Take nothing for the journey except a staff, no bread, no bag, no money in your belts. I just want to show you that sometimes the Holy Spirit, he can actually say this kind of stuff, like in the Word and then in real life. By the way, if he doesn't say this, take all those things. All of them. And get somebody to fund you and get a lot of money. But I heard the Lord say, you're going by yourself. Don't take anything with you. I'll show you what you're going to do when you get there. You won't know a soul on the continent until you land. Well, the good news is I'm new at this whole learning how to hear the voice of the Lord thing. And I'm confident now that's not God's voice. We'll try again tomorrow. And so the next day I wake up and I pray all the same things and I get the exact same answers. And the next day, and the next day, for 3 years. For 3 years, I asked the Lord these same questions over and over and over. And boldness and confidence and faith is growing within me. Now, I just want to give you a little side point here. There are some things that the Lord has spoken to you. I'm talking to you. Here's some things that's spoken to you. Here's what you need to do. This is just a stewardship thing. You need to pray about them every single day. Because if you will, you'll get more. He never gives us the whole story at the beginning because we couldn't say yes to it. We just die. But he does give us little breadcrumbs. And if we'll pray every day, we'll get more. And even if the more is just confidence that it's God. Confidence. And so you want to do that. The other thing that's really helpful about praying about something every day, you know when the timing shifts. Because the right thing at the wrong time is the wrong thing. Right? You want to be in the timing of God, not just the purpose of God. And I'll just tell you, when I was praying every day, Lord, what am I doing? What am I going? What do I take with me? All that stuff. And I'm praying it over and over. It was always, it's coming, it's future, it's coming. Until the day it was, now it's time. And I'll just tell you this, if you'll pray about something that the Lord's speaking to you about, and you'll commit to praying about it daily, just as part of your dialogue with the Lord, you will know his timing without question when it's time. We don't need to get ahead of the Lord. You can actually hijack some things in some ways that you don't want by doing the God thing, by doing the right plan at the wrong time. There's countless examples of that in history and in the Bible. We don't want to jump the gun. We want to be in the timing of the Lord. And if you'll commit to pray about it, here's what happens. You grow in relationship with the Lord. You grow in confidence of your assignment. And you can discern the timing without anybody having to tell you when it's time. Because you've been hearing the Lord this way, this way, this way, this way. And then all of a sudden, there's a little pivot. So I just want to encourage you with that. So at this point now, I'm, 23, 22, 23, something like that. And I've been praying about this for 3 years over and getting the same answers to these crazy questions. And I'll tell you what, another thing that happens related to that confidence, I'm a young adult at this point. I'm, 22, 23, and I am unstoppable. No one can convince me otherwise. I know it's the Lord. I prayed about it every day for 1,000+ days. I mean, I've been really engaged in this thing. And the Lord wanted me to have that confidence because there were many who wisely were trying to talk me out of this. I don't blame them. They were smart. It's just the Lord was doing something a little different in that moment. And so I started praying, how am I going to get over there? What am I going to do? And I felt like the Lord just made some things really clear. He said, I'm going to take care of you more or less as a sign that he's going to take care of me when I get over there. He says, I'm going to take care of you in all the preparation. You won't have to do anything, and you won't have to ask for anything. I said, okay. I said, well, I announced what I was doing, and immediately somebody jumped in and said, hey, you know what? I've got a bunch of American airline miles. I'm going to support this missionary journey that you're going to do as far as my miles will get you. Well, it got me through like 2 or 3 flights, okay? And I had 4 flights to be able to get where I was going. When I started to pray about which nation I was going to go to, I didn't really feel like the Lord told me which nation. What I did feel like is I'm supposed to go to the Muslim 1040 window in Africa. I felt very strongly, I'm going to get it into whatever country is the most Muslim one I can get into, which at the time was the nation of Mali, 99.9% Muslim. That's pretty darn Muslim, if you ask me. Because the other point whatever percent, it's everything else. It's Christians, but it's also animists and Hindus and Jehovah's Witnesses and everything else is all in that group of the not 99.9% Muslim. So there's not much else going on over there except Muslim, okay? And I picked that country because it was easy to get a passport in or my visa into. And so I picked that one. And so this guy pays for my flights, or part of them, with the American Airline miles. And I had this clunker of a car. I was an intern at one of the churches here in Arlington, serving in youth ministry. And I had this car that just wasn't worth much at all. In fact, when I finally was able to sell it to some poor slob who was willing to give me anything for it, I got $1,600. Well, the part about that was really cool to me was my flights that remained were $1,600. So I thought, Lord, this is awesome, $1,600. And I heard him say, do not use that money for the flight. I said, well, you make this hard on purpose. Like, wait. I was all like giving you praise for a miracle, and you took it back. I said, okay, and I just heard him say, you won't have to do a thing. I said, okay. So now I've got my flights reserved because I've already paid for, a good portion of them with American Airline miles, but I've still got this $1,600 bill, okay? And so I'm less than a week out, and I don't have the $1,600, and I've not told anybody I don't have the $1,600, okay? And I go, I'm getting close, and I'm like, Lord, you said you're gonna take care of it. A sophomore in the youth group, okay? He comes up to me one day, and he says, hey, Brad, really excited about this trip, about this missionary journey you're going on, because I sold everything. I was planning to go and live over there forever, die a martyr, whatever was going to happen. I'm planning to sow my life into the mission field, okay? And he comes up to me, he says, do you need anything, for your trip? And I was like, I'm thinking in my head, well, I need $1,600 for an airfare. But I didn't say that. I go, oh, things are great. I didn't tell him I didn't have a need. And he said, no. He said, what do you need? And I go, well, what do you mean? He said, what do you need? And I said, I'm praying that the Lord would take care of something for me. He said, what is it? And I said, well, I've still got a little bit left on my flight. And he said, would $1,000 help? Sophomore in high school. I go, dude, what are you talking about? You're a sophomore in high school. He said, yeah, I've been praying about it. I really want to give it to you. It's my life savings. Says it's all I have, and I want to give it to you to be able to do this. And I'm like, I am so blown away and humbled. I knew his dad because he was a youth worker, and I called him. I said, listen, this is what happened. Did you know this? He said, I didn't know that. He said, but he made that money. It's his choice. If he wants to give it to you, you take it. Oh my gosh. Now remember, I'm leaving on a plane in 7 days. I've now got $1,000. I'm still short $600, right? But I've now got faith, because that's how the Lord works with us. He builds our faith. So it's now the going away party, okay, which is literally 2 days before I get on a plane. And 2 different people, without knowing any details, because I kept my mouth shut, 2 different people came up to me and gave me $300 and $300. I got exactly $1,600. I didn't have to say a word. The Lord took care of it. Here's just another little point. I just want to give you a point of encouragement. If you want God's stories, don't tell men. Don't tell men. I am very grateful for the family of God and relationships and people helping each other, and there is so much place for that. But there's also a place for secret conversations between you and the Lord, where you're asking him to do something, and you never tell a soul so that no man can manipulate the circumstance, so that when it happens, you know it's God, right? Yeah, my mind was blown, because now I've got everything I need 2 days before, just like he said, and now I go, I believe you're gonna take care of me on this trip. All right, so we get to the airport, and my poor mom is crying, and she said, I'm never gonna see you again, my little boy. And I was like, I didn't have the heart to tell her she was wrong, because there's a darn good chance she was right, that she was never gonna see me again. So I was like, oh, Mom, I love you, it'll be good. And I'm like, she might be right, though. And so I get on the plane, and I've got 4 flights, and each flight gets less Englishy. I don't know if y'all can tell, I'm an extrovert, so not being able to talk to people really bugs me, okay? Long about flight 3 or 4, I can't even order a Coke from the stewardess. She just looks at me, and I'm just pointing now. I'm like, that one. Like, this one? No, that one next to it. This one. Just give me whatever. Here's my point. I'm going to a nation that the educated population, which would be about 10% of the population, speak French, okay? No one speaks English. The educated population speak French, and the majority of the people speak the native tongue of Bambara, okay? Now, I'd like to see a show of hands in here. If you speak Bambara, put your hand in the air. You know what? Me neither. Yeah. So I'm going to a country that I don't speak French, by the way, not even a little bit. My English isn't great. I'm pretty fluent in Pig Latin, but I don't know how relevant that is. And so I show up in this country. I've now been on 4 different flights. I don't sleep on airplanes. It's just this plague I have. I just can't sleep on an airplane. It's horrifying. So 2 days, 4 flights. I show up in Bamako, Mali at 2:30 in the morning, and I'm getting off the plane, and I look up as we're getting off the plane because there's no airport. There's no terminal. We're just getting off onto the tarmac, and then there's this dirt trail, and I'm like, holy, what have I done? And I look up, and I remember taking that first step off the plane, and they've got the little, the roll-up stairs. And I look up, and it's the same clear sky, totally bright full moon. And I'm a little wink from the Lord, And I look up, and I go, if you're not real, I'm a dead man. Go, this is not going to go well. I won't make it 24 hours without your help. And so, sure enough, we're walking. There's this light off in the distance that turns out to be like a little hangar, okay? And people are walking single file, and they're going through customs. Getting through customs when you don't speak any of the language is really challenging, by the way. Won't camp out there, but enough to say the nice lady with the AK-47 wasn't particularly excited about my inability to speak to her while we're trying to get through customs. And so, anyway, so we get into this little hangar area, and everybody is getting their bags, their luggage. Well, I don't have luggage. I took with me a sling pack, a yellow sling pack that I had over my back. It had my Bible, an extra pair of clothes in it, and a stick of deodorant. I snuck that deodorant in there. I thought if I'm dying, I don't want to die stinky. And so the Lord and I, it's one of those conversation points we've never talked about. I don't bring it up. He hasn't brought it up. I snuck the deodorant in there, okay? But I didn't take any money. So I'm legitimately landing in Africa. I have no idea where I'm going, what I'm going to do. I don't know anybody on the continent, and I don't have $1. Okay? And here I am, 2:30 in the morning. So people are getting their stuff, and I'm so tired. I'm so exhausted. And I said, Lord, can we start this whole being a missionary in Africa thing tomorrow? I'm really tired. I want to sleep. And as soon as I say that to the Lord, this guy walks up to me, and in broken English, he says, you need taxi? You need hotel? And I go, why, yes, I do. I said, well, this is wonderful. I go, oh, you know what, though? In America, you have to pay for those things. Is that how it works here, too? You gotta pay for things? He goes, what do you mean? Yes, you must pay. I go, well, I don't have any money. No, this is not possible. No one come to Africa have no money. I said, I know, but I did. And so here we are. He goes, no, you have no money? I said, no money. He says, what will you do? And I go, I don't really know. I was kind of hoping you could help me with that. And he says, he kind of looks a little bewildered, and a few minutes later he goes, you need taxi? Yes. You need hotel? Yes. You come. And I said, I have no money. He says, no money is no problem. You come. I go, okay. I said, Lord, what do I do? And I hear the Holy Spirit say, go with him. I go, okay, free ride. Here we go. Okay, so this guy hires out a taxi, okay, taxi driver, and the taxi driver definitely doesn't know any English, and this guy doesn't know a lot of English. And we wind up in this taxi, and we're driving away. Okay, now, I just want to give you a little insight here that I learned about a good while later, but you get to know the information kind of, front row early on in the story. It took me about 10 days to figure out the detail I'm about to share with you. What's actually happening is I'm being abducted by a crime syndicate. Yeah. Lots of fun. Lots of fun. Don't recommend it. If you can avoid being abducted by a crime syndicate 10 times out of 10, you want to avoid it. So here's what this crime syndicate does, okay? They've got henchmen posted at all the major ports, and they're looking for white American tourists that they can get into a car and take to way stations out in the desert, okay? You guys ever heard the term from here to Timbuktu? It's the middle of Mali. It's nowhere, it's just sand dunes. It's just sand and Sahara Desert and dunes upon dunes, and there's nothing out there. So there's plenty of desert is my point. This crime syndicate, their thing, their business model is get white American tourists, get them into taxis, and then take them out to the desert and interview them the next day to figure out what their fate will be, and there's nothing good on the list. It's either bad, holy, whoa, or dead. I mean, it's just bad, okay? And so I don't realize I'm hapless. I'm just this guy in the back seat, so tired, you know. I'm a missionary in Africa. And so we're driving, and for 45 minutes, I don't see a light or a building. It's just dunes. I was like, where is this hotel? We are out there, man. This is really far. So about 45 minutes into the journey, the two guys in the front seat start arguing. Hold on. And the guy who knew a few words of English, he turns around and he goes, the taxi driver, he said he want money now. I said, I told you I don't have any money. And you were all, no problem. I don't have any money. And he goes, huh. And then he goes back to arguing. Taxi stops in the middle of the desert. Taxi driver gets out of the car. He opens my car door, opens it up, and starts, get out of my car. I knew this was a bad idea. I'm going to die for sure. And so I do not know what I'm about to say. I honestly don't know what words are about to come out of my mouth, but I'm positive it's not what happened. What's about to come out of my mouth is crying. I don't know. All I know is all of a sudden I see my finger fly past my face like it belonged to somebody else's hand. So in the name of Jesus, you get back in that car. I'm not giving you one dime. We're going wherever we were going before. And as soon as I did, it's like lightning came off my finger. This guy doesn't know English, not a word. And lightning, best way, I didn't see it, but it's like what happened because as soon as I pointed at him, his countenance went from angry to, he gets back in the car, he closes the door, and he drives, and it's totally silent. And I'm in the back seat going, you're real. I am not going to die. I will live and declare the works of the Lord, the land of the living. I'm like, this is going to work. It's on, man. Revival is on. And so I'm in the back seat freaking out. Let's put up that verse, though, Mark 13:11. Here, it's important that we know this. This is another one of those things. Whenever you're arrested and brought up on trial, do not worry beforehand about what you will say. Just say whatever's given to you at the time. For it's not you speaking, but the Holy Spirit. I witnessed this firsthand. I felt this happen. This is a real thing. This isn't like you'll be given words of knowledge or words of wisdom. This is the Holy Spirit will take over your finger and make you do stuff and say stuff, and you're like, well, that was cool. Who did that? Like you're sitting next to the person in the back seat. This is a real part of the way that the kingdom of God works. But I will tell you this. There are things that the Lord wants to do in our life that he won't do when we're in safety. There's things that he wants to do in our life when we're in faith, when we're taking steps. And I just want to tell you, you don't need to go to Africa to be in faith. In fact, if the Lord didn't tell you to go do this and you did it, you'd be out of faith. But the Lord may well tell you to keep that job you hate. He may well tell you you need to start addressing your attitude with your spouse. He may very well tell you to start something local to serve here in this church. See, his wisdom, his ways are higher. He's smarter than us. Just think about that. Every time we think our plan is better than his, it's an accusation against his intellect. Like somehow we're smarter. No, God, I've got this figured out. I know you're just getting started on this whole how the world works thing, but I'm really smart, and I know the plans that I have for me. Plans to prosper me and not to harm me, my way. And the Lord's like, I've got a better plan. I just want to encourage us. I want to exhort us this morning in any of those areas that we're like, nah, Lord, I got this. Because I think that's probably more real than we want to make it out to be. About that little nudge, that thing at work, that thing in business, that thing that you're doing in your family life, that thing, just that thing. I'm not talking about sin stuff even. Stop sinning. If you're sinning, don't sin. Don't do that. Good. Now that we got that over with. I'm talking about the leadership of the Holy Spirit. Those little leadings, those little nudges, what about a career change to this? What about shifting this? What about starting? I mean, those little things that he tugs at. There's things that he wants from us. And when we're comfortable, there's a lot of things that we're just not gonna see happen. But when we step out and we go, I don't like that. It doesn't look good to me. But yes, Lord, that's where we encounter him. And I want to encourage you to live there the rest of your days. Okay, so it's the next morning, all right? So, no. We drive another 15 minutes. We show up at this mud hut village out in the middle of the desert. Like straight up National Geographic style, okay? They're real, I've seen it. It's not like Nessie or whatever, Sasquatch. Like these are real things. They're really actually mud hut villages. And I'm like, oh, I'll be darned, look at this place. This is pretty cool. And the guy who knew the 10 words of English or whatever, he's the guy who had rented out the taxi for me. He sends the taxi on its way, and now we're there, and he rolls out this straw mat that's like this thick. He rolls it out on the desert floor. He points at it and he says, hotel. You know what? I'm so tired. Tomorrow, though, I'm dealing with you. So I got my backpack, and I just put my head down, and I'm out. I am exhausted. Well, I wake up the next morning, and there's this big guy there, and his name's Cardair, okay? And it turns out Cardair knows perfect English. He's the guy in charge. I don't really know what situation I'm in, and it's sometimes the Lord uses our ignorance to help us along, because if we understood what was going on, we would probably run away scared, right? And so he's keeping certain details from me. And so I'm meeting this guy, this Cardair, and again, from his perspective, I don't know, but maybe I'm his first or second or third place he's supposed to go that morning to go see what last night's catch was. You got me? And he's gonna interview me to figure out what he wants to do with me. Ransom, extortion, take money out of my pocket and kill me, leave me in the desert. Who knows? Nothing good is my point. All right? So I'm meeting this guy, and I'm me. Can you imagine being him and meeting this? I feel sorry for him because I am like, I've just had a nap and I'm ready to go, okay? All right, and so he says, my guy, he tells me that you not pay the taxi man last night. He said, this is not good, you must pay. I said, I don't have any money. He says, this is not possible. No one come to Africa has no money. I said, I did. And he goes, no, what will you do? And I said, I'm here to preach the gospel and get you saved. And he goes, no, I'm not giving myself to you, Jesus. I'm big man in Mali. I'm Muslim. I'm not giving myself to you, Jesus. I said, well, you asked why I'm here. And he said, well, who do you know? I said, well, nobody. Well, I know you now. He goes, no, this is not possible. I said, I've been getting that a lot lately. He said, well, he starts asking me question after question, and he is bewildered. Can you just imagine the last 10 meetings he's had? Probably the person's on the ground crying, pleading for their life, which would have been the smart play, right? I am too dumb. I don't even know or care. I'm like, I came here to be a missionary or die or both. So it's on, let's do it. And so he's asking me these questions, and the wildest thing happens. Maybe 15 minutes into the conversation, his countenance also changes. And he goes from this, this and what are you doing? He goes from that to, I help you. I make you big man in Mali. I help you preach in other places. You come live with me. I kind of look around real quick, the desert, to survey my options for housing. I see. So I pray. I say, Holy Spirit, what do I do? And I heard the Lord say two things so clear. First thing, this guy is bad news. Ooh, okay. Second, go live with him. Sweet, Lord, sweet. We're going to have to talk about this because your ways are assuredly not my ways. This seems like a really bad plan, but okay, why not? So now he takes me back to the city. Now remember, I don't know anything about the geography. I don't know anything about nothing. I didn't even Google the city before I came. I literally landed and didn't know there was a city. I don't know anything. All I've seen so far is desert. He takes me into the city. It's a capital city. There's 3 million people in this city. This is a really big city. Third world country, really big city. So we're driving through the markets and and I'm like taking it all in. This is amazing. Well, he takes me back to his, I'm going to call it a compound, but it wasn't as sketchy as that sounds. I mean, it was the place where he lived and where his henchmen lived, but it was just part of a suburb. And as is the construction in many that part of Africa, is there would be like a 2 or 3 story building with a giant courtyard in the middle, and the courtyard was for cooking and for hanging out, all that kind of stuff. And then all the apartments or the little places where people live would be all around the exterior. So he's there, and he's got this apartment on the 2nd level, and as we pull in, there were 2 things that I noticed that were like really funny. Okay, one was what I kindly refer to as the two-bob patrol. Okay, what's a two-bob patrol? People in this particular area of the country have never in their life seen white skin before, never. I am the coolest thing ever to the kids. And they're all yelling, white man, which is two-bob, okay? And so they are, everywhere I go, they are running at me, white man, two-bob. And it's like hilarious, because I've got like an entourage of all these kids. They're like, what is this white guy doing here? Like, we've never seen white skin. And I just like, I don't know what I'm doing here either. But the funnier thing to me wasn't their response, it was the henchmen's response. Now, I don't know their henchmen, but I can definitely see on their face the following look. Did the master bring home a pet? Why is this white guy back at our base? We don't bring them home. We leave them for dead in the desert. Why is this one at our house? And they're all looking at me very strangely. And I can tell there's a little bit of a tension. And as soon as we get out of the car, and now there's like 3 or 4 of them that are all standing there, including the guy that was there the night before that had gotten me into the car. And he's just as bewildered. And Cardare, he puts his arm around me. He goes, we help this man. We provide for his needs. He stay with us. You get this. He starts barking out orders to his dudes about how they're going to supply for my needs. And within like hours, I've got a mattress sleeping in this dude's bedroom 3 feet from him. And I have now got a mattress. They're supplying for my needs. Just the wildest things are happening. And I don't know anything of what's going on. I'm like, man, Malian hospitality is just great. You know, they really know how to treat a guy, you know? And so, now, the part that I want to give you here is, this is a miracle, right? Why in the world am I not dead? Okay, let's put up that verse with Daniel 2:48. It's just a piece of Daniel's life. Before we read the verse, I just want to tell you how weird it is that Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar were buddies. Nebuchadnezzar is a demon-worshiping king. Daniel is this young prophet filled with prayer and life and the power of God. Then the king placed Daniel in a high position and lavished many gifts on him. He made him ruler over the entire province of Babylon and placed him in charge of all of its wise men. What? We read that and we're like, oh yeah, it's the story of Daniel. The heck? What happened? How did that happen to that guy? The Lord allowed Daniel to curry favor with the ruler in order to accomplish the purposes of God in his generation. The Lord allowed me to curry favor with this ruler. And it didn't make any sense at all. So now we're back at his compound, okay? And all these henchmen have just been told, you take care of him, he's our guest, buy him a bed, okay? I mean, crazy stuff, right? So now I'm living in this house. Well, here's the thing. All these guys are eager to learn English, right? They know a little bit of English, but not so much, because the little bit they know is probably restricted to get in the car, yeah, right? I mean, it's mostly what they know, not a lot of conversation going on beyond that. Here's the funny thing. You remember how I told you that this nation is a French-speaking country for the educated population? Nobody speaks English, and most everybody speaks Bambara. I am in the only house, probably in the whole country, I can actually minister the gospel. Because if you're going to work for this crime lord, you got to have one thing in common. You know at least a little bit of English. By the wisdom of God, I am in the only place I can effectively minister the gospel. Lord, how did you even do that? Do you know the Lord loves cartels and gangs and crime syndicates? He loves them and he wants them saved. And he might need to do a little bit of an insertion in order to make something happen, because they're probably not going to openly just come to church. Okay. So I'm now living with this guy, and every day, these henchmen, specifically like 4 or 5 of them, they are wanting to talk to me all day and learn English, get English better. And I am willing to talk all day. about one thing, Jesus Christ. And they're trying to change the subject. I go, you know what Jesus said about that? You know, and let's talk more about Jesus. And what you really need is to give your life to Jesus. You're being silly. Quit all that. These henchmen, one by one, start giving their lives to Jesus. The number one guy, so the crime lord's, right-hand man, it was his cousin. And this dude gives his life to the Lord. I'm going to share that story here in just a minute because it so profoundly impacted my life. But before I do that, I just want to put up Matthew 16:24. We want to be those that follow the Lamb wherever he goes. Look at this verse in Matthew 16. This is such a pretty screen. You think Stephen let me have it? Then Jesus said to his disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. Now here's what I want to tell you. If the Lord leads you into a henchman's or a crime lord's household, we follow the Lamb. If he leads you to a job you don't like, we follow the Lamb. If he leads you to a job you love, and then a year later, you hate it, and God led you there, we follow the Lamb wherever he goes. See, we gave up our life. It's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. The life I live, I now live for the Son of God. We're not our own. We were bought at a price. But if we believe this stuff, then we've got to walk it out. And I just want to tell you, following the Lamb wherever he goes isn't about trying to get a crazy, radical story about going to the mission field. It's about being radically obedient to the things that the Lord's speaking to you about right now in this season of your life. The Lord has plans and purposes right here. If everybody went there, who would minister in Arlington? Okay, so it doesn't work that way. Most of us are going to be right here. But there's stuff he wants you to do. There's things that he wants you to do in ministry, but then there's also posturing he wants you to do in order to be able to minister later, like that specific job, that specific street, building relationship with that specific person. And you may not know where this is going, but we want to follow him. We want to be a people that say yes to him, radically say yes to him. All right, so the number 2 guy. All right, now his real name is like really hard to say. I can't say it. He had a name and it was great, but I couldn't pronounce it because I'm from Texas, okay? And it was long and had a lot of letters together in ways that didn't make sense to me, okay? And so all I know is his native language, this guy was brilliant. He knew 8 languages, okay? He's brilliant. His native language, because he was from Senegal, his native language is Wolof. Now, if you ever hear Wolof spoken from some dude from Texas, here's what it sounds like. Just sounds like a bunch of hums to me. So I called this guy Hum Hum, okay? And he loved it. He's like, I just got a nickname from the guy from Texas, okay? So he is now Hum Hum. Now, I don't know why. I don't know what movie he watched. I don't know what song he listened to. But for some reason, he called me my guys with an S. My guys. I don't know. Like, come on, guys. I don't know what he heard in a movie. But I'm my guys. He's Hum Hum. And that's just how it is. Okay? My guys and Hum Hum. And we became thick. Now, every day, I am doing a Bible study with this group of henchmen in the crime lord's living room. Every day we're doing a Bible study. So every morning we'd have breakfast, and then I'm doing a Bible study with them. I'm talking day 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay, of landing in Africa with no plan. I couldn't have made this happen. I am not smart. In fact, I think the Lord leaned on my stupidity. I couldn't have planned this if I would have worked at it for 10 years. I just showed up and said, yes, Lord, what do you got? I'm doing this Bible study with these guys every day. We're in the Word. I'm teaching them. I'm talking to them. And one day, I remember Hum Hum and I were out on an errand, okay? And he looks at me, and he goes, but guys, I has the Jesus now. He's warm. I go, Hum Hum? Are you telling me you gave your life to Jesus? Yes, my guys, this is what I says. I go, oh my gosh, we got our first live one. I was like, we've got a disciple. This is the first dude to give his life to the Lord, and it's the crime lord's cousin, okay? Who's his number 1 guy. It's his like right-hand man. I'm like, this is crazy. So now I am like, Hum Hum, we got to get you a Bible. And so we get Hum Hum a Bible in French, okay? And so now he can read in French because he can speak English pretty good, but he can't read it. So we get him a Bible in French, and now I've got this Bible study going, and he's in the Bible, and he's translating, and he'll say even some things to some of the guys that maybe didn't understand some of the words and stuff. It was just the craziest stuff. So we also start going out street preaching, okay? And so we go out just evangelizing, one-on-one kind of style. We'd see somebody on the street, and Hum would serve as the translator because now he's in. He has given his life to the Lord, and his countenance has shifted, and he is like, a full-on brother in Christ, okay? And now I've got fellowship. I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. Okay, so we're out and evangelizing, and what we'll do is, I'll open the Bible, and I'm going to use the same 5 verses every time, make it easy on Hum. And so he's translating these verses one at a time, and we're talking to people and asking them if they want to give their lives to the Lord, and all this is happening. Okay, so now it's about, maybe day like 7 or 8 or something. I've only been there a week. Are we tracking? And I walk past Hum. He's reading his Bible, and he looks at me and he goes, "Oh, hey, Paul." And I go, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, you is Paul, I is Timothy." Oh my gosh. Are you serious? You understand the discipleship relationship of the New Testament? Oh, my mind is blown. I go, yeah, I guess I am. I guess you are too. Just go with that. Let's go with that. And I am mind boggled by the comprehension. I've not explained this to him. But he didn't need it because the Holy Spirit's been speaking to him because he's in the Word every single day. Listen, I just want to give you a little piece of encouragement. If we're not in the Word, we're missing so much of what the Lord wants to do in our life. I'm not saying good Christians read their Bible. I'm saying people that want their heart alive read the Bible. People that want revelation from God read the Bible. People that want to know what God is doing in their lives, want to know who He is, what He's about, what He likes, read the Bible. Hum was reading the Bible, so he was having encounters with God. All right, so it's a few days later, maybe it's day 9 or something. I don't have the days exactly right. I just know it was under 10 days. I'm out walking around, and what I would do every day is, every day I would walk just a little bit further away from the compound, just trying to figure out the streets and what's this street, what does it go to? How do you buy bread? They're taking me on errands and stuff and buying stuff, but I'm like, okay, what's the word for water and how do I get stuff? I'm just trying to figure out some basic stuff because I knew I wasn't going to be at this place forever because the favor I had with this crime lord is waning. Because now his henchmen are getting saved and they don't want to do his bad stuff anymore. Now, I don't know what bad stuff they were doing. I just can sense the tension in the house as it's like he's wanting to do certain things and they're kind of trying not to and reluctant. I just can see it and Hum's he says, it's getting bad and he says, Carder, he is going to be a problem for you soon. I'm like, okay. Well, anyway, so I'm out wandering around on one of these little wandering journeys and as I'm out, I hear this couple, they come up to me and they say, something, Jesu Christ. Well, that has got to be my Jesus. And I look at them and I go, you guys are Christians? And they look at me with astonishment. Their eyes get really big. And in perfect English, they say, you know English? And I go, I don't care who you are. Hug me right now. And I give them both a big hug right there on the street. I don't know who they are. I go, who are you? And they go, oh, we're pastors of a little Pentecostal church about 2 blocks from here. 99.9% Muslim country. I'm 2 blocks away from a Pentecostal church where the pastors speak perfect English. They were trained in the States. Oh my gosh. Are you serious? And they go, yeah. They go, well, we thought you were an albino. We were witnessing to you. Because there's no white people around here. It made way more sense that I was an albino than I was a white guy, because there's no white guys there. And they were like, we felt sorry for you because albinos really don't get treated well. And we were witnessing the gospel to you. And I was like, well, good. They go, great. I'm glad that we had that little interaction. They go, well, what are you doing here? I go, I'm a missionary from America. And immediately they go, oh my goodness, this is not possible. This is not possible. We've been praying for years that the Lord would send us a white American missionary to do outdoor preaching. Because of the color of your skin, you can gather a crowd anywhere. And I was like, I've kind of noticed that. And they go, it doesn't even matter what you talk about. You can gather a crowd wherever. They said, we have got a sound system and a generator. Can you start tomorrow night? And I go, yes, I can. This is why I came. What's crazy is when I left, I knew that the Lord had for me outdoor preaching. I felt like I was supposed to do preaching ministry, outdoor preaching, open air preaching to Muslims. And so I'm like, how in the world is this even happening? And then they go, you're the answer to our prayer. We've been praying for years. Sometimes your prayers and their prayers meet in the middle in a way you just could not have made happen. You couldn't have believed. See, because there's other people that love God too. It's not just us. And as they're talking to God, the same God, he weaves things together and works out the good for those who love him. And so here I am finding myself in this moment of divine purpose. I'm like, oh my gosh, Lord. So then they go very confused because they know there's no hotels nearby. They go, where are you staying? And I go, well, I'm staying with this guy, Cardair. And they go, this man is very bad. It's amazing you are not dead. This man is notorious. He's like crime lord and da-da-da. And I go, I thought it was bad. I didn't know it was that bad. Maybe you could help me get out of there. And they go, oh, we'll help you. We'll get you an apartment or whatever. I'm like, oh my gosh. And now here they are at just the right timing. Right after I've been able to sow these seeds, I've seen 3 of these henchmen give their lives to the Lord. I've been doing this Bible study in this living room, and I'm losing favor with the guy that's over it. And now 2 blocks away is this Pentecostal church, and they take me in, and they help set me up with an apartment and everything. Well, Hum Hum is all in for the gospel. Hum Hum's all in, and Hum Hum has really lost favor with his cousin. His cousin is threatening him, he's gonna kick him out, all this stuff. And I said, Hum Hum, come live with me. And so now Hum Hum actually lives in the apartment with me now that the pastors had helped me, figure out. And so he's living with me, and we're now doing all different kinds of stuff. We're now starting these nightly preaching meetings where we're going around to different soccer fields in the area, and we'll just set up the sound equipment and the generator, and people would come, and I'd preach the gospel, and there would be an interpretation, and I don't know that too many of them were giving their lives to the Lord, but I was definitely spreading the seed. And one night I remember this guy comes up, and I hear from somebody that, hey, the witch doctor's son is here in the meeting. Okay. He goes, so in that culture, the witch doctor is called the Marabu. The son of the Marabu is here. Okay. So I preach every night that Jesus saves and Jesus heals, because I know there's lots of ailments, and I want people to see encounters with the Lord and feel the presence of healing in their body, and for them to know that God heals. And so I'd say that, and after I'm done with the message, the witch doctor's son comes up, and he's kind of like off to the side, and he finds Hum Hum, and he says, can I talk to the white man? And he says, yeah. And so he comes over, and again, Hum Hum's interpreting, and he says, you say that your Jesus can heal. He said, I was born with crippling back pain. It's a curse because he's the witch doctor's son. He said, I've never known a day in my life without pain. He said, I've never known a minute in my life. I've had pain in my back my entire life. He says, can Jesus heal that? I said, absolutely he can, to prove to you that he is God and that you're supposed to give your life to him, and you need to turn away from Allah and from the practices of your father, the witch doctor. He said, okay. So I pray for him, and he walks away. Well, it's like a couple days later, and Hum Hum comes up to me, and he goes, oh, my guys, he says, I seized the son of the Marabu. He says, when the white man put his hand on my back, he says, I feel heat. He says, the pain is gone for days. Never happened in my life. He says, I am completely healed. He says, I want to meet. And I go, oh, my gosh. I go, Hum Hum, that's amazing. I go, well, we got to set up an appointment. He goes, my guys, it's me. I already does this. It's the night. It's 7 o'clock. And so that night we meet with the witch doctor's son, and I'm like, I can't believe it. He tells the story again. He says, when you put your hand on me, I felt like heat and power. He didn't know how else to describe it. And I didn't feel anything. I was just like, in Jesus' name, heal the guy. And so you don't need to be all spiritual. It's really not about you. If it was about us, nothing would work. Nothing would work. We would all be dead and doomed. Okay? But if it's about him and simple obedience, then it works. And so anyway, so he tells me that, and I go, why did he heal you? He said, to prove to me that he's God. And I said, now you need to give your life to Jesus. And he says, I can't. My father's the Marabu. He'll kill me. And I just thought about that. It was like the stronghold of the enemy. The way that works. Oh my gosh, just the way that the enemy's grip on people. He's paralyzed in fear. He's fearful for his life. And so he won't give his life to Jesus, even though he knows Jesus just healed him. He's been in pain his whole life. I got to see many, many miracles. I got to see many crazy things happen. I'm going to skip forward a little bit because I want to tell you how this season ended, because I'm here. You did notice that, right? Okay. So when I left, I sold everything. I believed I was going to be a lifer. I thought I was in the mission field for the rest of my life or until I die, something, okay? I'm about 3 months in, and I've seen the wildest stuff happen. I feel like I'm living the next chapter of Acts. Okay, I am walking around seeing miracles, the Holy Spirit speaking to me, leading. All these crazy things are happening. As a result of this trip, churches were planted, wild things occurred, just unbelievable things you can't make happen and you can't take any credit for. None. Crazy stuff. So it's about 3 months in, and one day I just get this little nudge in my spirit. It's time to come home. And I thought, in Jesus' name, it's not time to come home. But you can't rebuke Jesus in the name of Jesus. It's the funniest, it doesn't work that way. He's like, no, that's where it ends. You can't. And so I'm like, I prayed about this for 3 years. I've only been here 3 months. How could it possibly be that I'm done? I wasn't saying no, I was saying, huh? And so I just want to tell you too, there's gonna be times in your life where the Lord has you take a hard left, and it was not what you thought was coming. It's wisdom from God. It's right and it's better. You don't need to lean on your own understanding. His ways are higher than yours. We got to trust him. So I said, Lord, I think you're speaking, but I'm just like really confused. And my answer is yes, whatever you want. Oh, my answer is yes. I said, but would you please help me? Like, I don't get it. And not only that, it was so subtle that it was pretty dismissible. And I'd spent 3 years getting solid on come. I can't just leave off of a little hunch, okay? So I go, Lord, speak any way you want. I will listen, I will follow. I said, but if you want to help me, give somebody in America a dream about me coming home early, and let everything in the dream be the color blue if I'm supposed to come home, but not supposed to come home quite yet. My season is ending. I'm not gonna be here for 10 years or forever. Maybe I'm gonna be here for another 6 months or a year, but it's time to start thinking I'm going back home. If I've got that thought process, then let everything in the dream be the color blue. So, but if I've got the timing right, and it's now, would you give somebody in America a dream about me coming home early and let everything in the dream be the color red? And I journal it in my journal. Now, I just want to tell you, I'm alluding here to Judges chapter 6 and Gideon throwing out that fleece. I want to tell you the right way and the wrong way to do fleeces. Never give God an ultimatum. That is not how this went, and it's not how it went in Judges 6. Gideon didn't say, if you don't do this, I won't obey. He said, help! I'm weak and I need help. Please help me to understand, help me. And I'm saying, Lord, speak any way you want, but if you'll do this, I'll know for sure, and I won't have any question, and I'll know forever. It's a week later, and I'm going to check my email. There's this little internet cafe that you can go and check your email for like $1 for an hour, right? Pretty good. Except that I'm convinced that the fastest way to die in Mali isn't by malaria, it isn't by crime lords, it's by the dial-up connection of that little internet cafe. Death, my friends, death. Dropped call. No, I just logged in. And so it was painful. But anyway, I eventually got through it. And I checked my email. It's about a week after this moment. I've journaled it. I checked my email, and it's one of my old students from doing youth ministry here in Arlington. And she writes this email. And she says, Brad, I know some people's dreams mean stuff sometimes. Mine never do. But anyway, I had this short dream about you. It's about you coming home from Africa early, and everything in the dream was the color red. The walls were red, your shirt was red, your face was red. Everything was red. Does that mean something? Only that God listens to man. Oh my gosh. And I'm in this internet cafe and I'm like, I'm laughing, I'm crying, I'm like sad, I'm mad, because now I know what I'm supposed to do and I don't like it. I'm like, how dare you give me that dream and tell me to go back home and do what? Sit on a couch in Arlington? Here I am out here on the front lines of missions on the 1040 window, tip of the spear. A little bit of arrogance. A little bit of healthy pride coming from that 23-year-old. But I'm like, Lord, what could you possibly want back in Arlington that could be more important than what's happening right here, right now? And I'll just tell you this. I didn't know the answer, but I was confident in this. Whatever the plan was, it was actually more important to the Lord than having me out there in the mission field in that way. The only thing I could figure is whatever's next, it must matter. It must really matter to the Lord. And there's another point too. We just got to trust him. We got to trust his ways. This was not what I wanted, but he's so much smarter. He's so much better. My 11-year-old here on the front row, JC, just wave real quick. She wouldn't exist. I sure am glad she exists. I met my wife. I mean, a lot of good things happen here. He's smarter than us. He always knew the whole plan. He just never tells us the whole plan. But it was always his whole plan. It's not like the plan changed. It's that we took another step into our map and got to see a little bit of it that we didn't know before. If we could just trust his sovereignty today and tomorrow and the next day, when we like the plan, and especially when we don't. So, I'm back in Arlington. I get plane tickets, yada, yada, skip through all that. And I am bored to tears. I am bored because I'm trying to figure out how do I get back out in the mission field. And it's just not the plan for a year and a half. Now, I'll tell you, as a 23-year-old that just came off the mission field and got to see all this stuff, a year and a half where the Lord just turned the volume all the way down and didn't speak to me about purpose and direction, all that, it felt like a decade. And I just want to empathize with the 23-year-olds and the 20-year-olds and 18 and whatever-year-olds. Like, I get that because it's a significant portion of your life. And sometimes the Lord just wants you to stew. He just wants you to sit right there and simmer and learn to listen, learn to wait, learn to be patient, learn to ride with him on the wings, and also learn to rest in the shadows and just be content in the following the direction of the Holy Spirit. We go where he goes. We don't get ahead of him. We don't make up our own plan. We follow Jesus. And so for a year and a half, it's quiet. So I get a job. I start a little Bible study in my living room. I'm in the Word. I'm trying to disciple a few people. I'm doing what you would do. And I'm completely directionless until one day, I'm sitting on my couch on my day off. Used to work at Bassett Furniture. You guys remember Bassett that got bulldozed and now it's something else? Or no, it turned into a trampoline park, right? I used to work at that Bassett. And it's my day off, and I'm sitting there on my couch, and I have the most powerful encounter I've ever had with the Lord to this day. Presence of the Lord gets really thick in the room, which was shocking. I'm like, well, welcome back. You've been mighty quiet. No, it wasn't like that. I felt God. I'm on the floor. It's a reverent moment. And I feel the thickness of the Lord in the room, and all of a sudden I hear the Holy Spirit speak these words to me. They weren't audible, but I don't know that audible would have felt any louder. It was so loud in my spirit. He said, start a daily prayer meeting tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. and don't stop until I come back. Huh? No, I'm a missionary. You got the wrong guy. I think the prayer guy's next door. I'm the missionary. It's start going back in the mission field tomorrow and stay there until you die a martyr. That's what the... And as soon as I felt this little argument rise up in my heart about what? It's like I heard it. He said it over and over, or it just reverberated in my spirit. I don't really know because it was the same to me. Start a daily prayer meeting tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. and don't stop until I come back. 5 a.m. is early, Lord. Are you even awake at 5 a.m.? Start a daily prayer meeting tomorrow. I'm like, oh, okay. Tomorrow? We ain't got a lot of time. Start a daily prayer. Until you do what? Till you come back. What are we talking about here? Like the second coming? What do you mean till you come back? Go, okay. I find myself saying, yes, Lord, if only so I can get up off the floor. Okay? And I'm like, okay, Lord, so then I get up and my life is over. I am officially a dead man walking. I am doomed to prayer now. I am a missionary. I wanted to die a missionary. I wanted to die a martyr out in the mission field, not die a daily death in prayer meetings. So I make some phone calls and I send out some emails. This is before text. I know, date myself. And I sent out some emails and I more or less, here's how the phone call went with a few of them. I go, hey, God spoke. He finally said so. Oh, that's great, bro. What did he say? Well, my life's over. Would your life be over too? Would you be at my house tomorrow morning at 5 so we can pray? Cool. What are we praying for? Not real sure. Okay, well, what are we doing this for? Well, we're going to do it every day we're going to do it every day. Can you be here tomorrow at 5 a.m.? And people kept saying yes. The next morning at 4:45 in the morning, there were 11 rowdy 20-year-olds banging at the door. Knock, knock, knock. Let us hear. We're here to pray. And we had our first prayer meeting September 13th, 2005. We've never missed a day in 18 years. Not one day. COVID, Snowmageddon. Nobody liked Snowmageddon in Arlington. Y'all stayed home. I had to go to prayer meetings. I was out on that crazy ice. We've never missed a day. And over the course of time, the Lord's added to it, added to it, added to it. So now we've got people coming from maybe 100 different churches from all across the region. We are praying for missions and missionaries and nations. We're praying for Arlington. We're praying for the churches in Arlington, praying for the services, for Stephen Kilgore to be anointed when he brings the word Sunday mornings. We are praying for our city. We are seeing the Lord do the wildest stuff. For 18 years, we've been doing this. For 18 years, I've been in a daily 5 a.m. prayer meeting, 7 days a week if I'm not out of town or sick or something. The Lord is so kind. Why do I share all this? Because I think that probably most of you go, man, I don't think I'm supposed to go to Africa. You're probably not. I would doubt that most of you are. But you are supposed to follow the same voice that I followed. And I want to give you this testimony to hopefully encourage you and inspire you to say yes in those ways that the Lord is leading. Because he has a plan, he has purposes, and we want to follow the Lamb wherever he goes, amen? All right, Father, I want to ask you in Jesus' name for your grace to rest on this people. Would you give them strength and comfort? Holy Spirit, would you encourage their hearts? Would you give them faith to be able to say yes? Would you help them, God? I pray, Lord, this morning that this testimony would be an encouragement that would have power to touch their hearts. I believe you gave me this story to tell so that hearts could be stirred to say yes at a greater level. So I pray for you to release the anointing of a heart that says yes, a faithful heart with a big yes in their spirit. This morning, Holy Spirit, touch each one of them. God, the ones in the room right now that are in that struggle moment, they're trying to figure out, can I do this? Should I say yes to this? I pray, Lord, you'd use this moment right now to speak to them and continue the conversation way past the message. In Jesus' name, amen.